Wonderful. Good morning, everybody, or I suppose good afternoon. I think we've just hit that noon mark. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Samantha Goretto. I'm the Executive Director for Client Solutions at POLITICO. And I am thrilled to be joined on stage with Mauro Macchi. Mauro is the Chief Executive Officer for Europe, Middle East, and Africa at Accenture. And we're very happy to welcome him to the stage today for a conversation. Welcome, Mauro. Great.
Great to be here.
Great to have you. And Mauro, I have to say I was especially looking forward to this conversation because 1 year ago, almost to the day, we were on stage at our AI and Tech Summit last year, having a really great conversation on European competitiveness, talking about the advancement of AI. So I think it's great that we maybe pick up where we left off. So in that last year, what has changed? What progress has been made?
Well, first of all, again, good morning to everybody. And it's great again to chat after 1 year exactly during our last discussion at POLITICO. Part of my job is to spend a lot of time talking to CEOs and executives across Europe, and I get the impression of what's happening. And of course, we work with many clients across the different countries. I would say that many things happen, of course, in the last 12 months. First of all, I have to say that I feel much more confident today, even though the macro context is very difficult, much more confident today compared to 12 months ago, simply because I find much more awareness, understanding of what AI can do, what are the potential, what are the limits, what it takes to make it work. So it's very different from 12 months ago. I try to choose 4 words to make it simple, to simplify the way I've seen the last 12 months. So clearly, the first one is about sovereignty. This is something that has changed in the last 12 months, clearly triggered by the geopolitical tension. So every situation typically triggers an effect, and there is a clear understanding at the EU level that Europe needs more strategic autonomy, especially when it comes to energy, defense, and technology. And when it comes to technology, clearly we need to continue to build our ecosystem, our tech and AI tech stack ecosystem. Clearly, we have a great example of champions which are progressing. We have global champions located in Europe across the different tech stack. Mentioning in hardware, ASML, in software, SAP, in industrial AI, you can see Siemens, Dassault, and so on. We also progressed with building AI factories, I think 19 AI factories across Europe. So a lot of things are happening, but we need to sustain the growth of this ecosystem. The second word, again starting with an S, is scaling of AI adoption. So scale. Scale is something that we have seen happening. Just to give you some example, we've done about 10,000 projects in the last couple of years globally. In Europe on AI, in Europe today we have 40% of our projects which are about scaling. Last year were 20%. So clearly we moved from a situation of piloting, experimenting, to a situation of scaling. And also a big change, many more projects in the growth space rather than only productivity. So today we have about 30% of projects that are dealing with growth, so AI for growth, versus 1 year ago was 15%. So these are numbers that show that clearly there has been a progression. The situation may be different across industry, but there is a progression on scaling and adopting more AI across the organization. And this is true both for private and public. So the third word after sovereignty and scaling is security. Clearly, the Mythos moment, what happened recently with Mythos, has triggered a lot of concern. Security was already the #1 concern last year about how to deploy AI in organization. So security has become further more and more important. We have been also leveraging and using and testing Mythos for a few weeks. Clearly, this is not a progression; it's a step change, and the technical barrier in terms of launching a sophisticated cyber attack is significantly lowered. So clearly there is a need for many players to review their security architectures, to refresh, to adapt them to the new context, because many of the current security framework and models in place in many companies are not enough compared to the new needs. So we expect investment in security. And the fourth, again, starting with an S, is sustainable AI, because energy is going to be a very important element of attention, and clearly we expect more and more frugal AI models to be applied. So we need to find ways to use AI with cheaper infrastructure, simpler model. So we see also in this space a lot of attention in smaller models, in granular models. So I think that is going to be also another important element moving forward in the next year. So again, sovereignty clearly impacted, the scaling, I would say security, and then sustainable AI. These are the big topics.
Great. Yeah, it's so interesting to see, again, from our conversation last year, how everything has progressed in so many areas. Another thing that I remember really distinctly from our discussion last year was this idea of humans in the workforce. So how are you actually preparing a workforce for adoption of AI? What's your perception of talent in Europe right now?
So this is a topic that is slowly progressing. And by the way, I attend different meetings and events, and I was reading also the agenda of this event for the next for these 3 days, and I was also a bit surprised to see not so much space on the talent on the people side, because AI is not only about technology investment, it's really about culture, it's really about talent. So 12 months ago, I was here telling you about the fact that every player needs to work on more and more on workforce strategy. This is a CEO topic, and we were giving example about the fact that we are pushing a lot the training from the senior level downward. In this year, of course, we continue to do that, but because the senior level needs to understand the potential and apply AI in the best possible way. And now we see organizations that understand that there is an AI for everybody and an AI for inventors. And clearly, leadership has a clear role, an important role to define, where to play in terms of investment for the workforce. We always say human in the lead, not human in the loop of AI. And for example, in our case, this year we took a very important decision to continue actually increasing the hiring of new graduates, which has been a big debate in the past few months about the workforce, about the new graduates. So this year we're going to hire more new graduates than last year, because we have seen in the last 12 months that this workforce is incredibly more AI native. We can see much more reverse mentoring in terms of helping the rest organization understanding the culture and working with AI. There is going to be a huge need in the coming year, so it represents a talent pipeline, and clearly, again, has a mindset that can help accelerate the AI adoption in every organization. So for us, maybe after a few reflection this year we made a plan, and we are executing this plan of hiring more new graduates. So again, I think every organization should accelerate on a workforce strategy. I talked about this to many CEOs, because it's going to be an important element in terms of competitiveness in the coming years.
Great, and interesting, of course, because AI can affect roles at every level, from leadership to entry level, so it's great to focus on that. So maybe thinking a little bit more about the current landscape and where we find ourselves today, of course, with geopolitical tensions, this conversation around European independence, how can Europe continue to adopt AI while maintaining its sovereignty?
So I'm aware that at the end of May, we will have, the EU will release a new AI package where more details about sovereignty requirements, and also points of view regarding procurement and by European and so on. So I'm aware. But from our point of view, the sovereignty topic needs to be seen in a very balanced way. This is not black and white. This is not all or nothing. We know that about 1/3 of the workloads, more or less, on average, 1/3 of the workloads are going to be requested to be under sovereignty regulation and sovereignty standard. So it means that there is 2/3 that really needs to be leveraged on innovation, on global opportunity to continuously innovate. So what I'm saying is that we believe that it's going to be more of a hybrid approach, more and more a hybrid approach on sovereignty, and we discuss this point with many clients. Just to give you a statistic again, 60% of the clients we work with have today in their agenda, in their plan, a new strategy on sovereignty. And for example, also the partnership and investment we made on Mistral is an example. Is a clear signal that clients want to have options, and we want to build options for them, and we want to provide the best possible solution and again best combination of what should be under more control, what should be under sovereignty, and what should be instead open to global innovation, which is going to be very important if you want to increase competitiveness.
So let's maybe talk a little bit about what this actually looks like in practice. So of course, as we all know and why we're here today, Europe has put a lot of emphasis on AI infrastructure. So I'm curious, in the work that you're doing, what do you think about this approach? Is this the right way to go?
So I think that infrastructure absolutely is a very important driver and working on infrastructure and building infrastructure. So again, I was mentioning before the 19 AI factories. I think gigafactories, maybe still this process is very slow compared to the initial expectation. But clearly infrastructure is a key driver of future competitiveness. But at the same time, I think that we should drive investment on the people with the same determination we drive investment on infrastructure. So the fiscal treatment that are typically applied to infrastructure investment as strategic assets should also be applied on the people side, because I think that investment on people is not a training cost, is productive capital. So I think, and I welcome more of that. But in general, again, I think that there is a great opportunity across Europe to continue to grow. I think that the gap, in my view, in many instances, especially for the big players, have reduced compared to other markets. We have seen a huge difference across industries. Some industries are much faster than other ones. For example, the pharma, life science, insurance, aerospace and defense, advanced manufacturing. These are applying AI much faster on average than other industries. So again, I think that the level of competitiveness can improve if we find a more balanced way to invest, not only on the infrastructure side, where there is a lot of attention on it, but also on the people side and on the workforce capital.
Great. It's always wonderful to continue to have a conversation on AI that is rooted in the people, right? The people who are building it and bringing behind the scenes.
Yes, and by the way, one point I didn't mention, again, even though I said at the beginning that clearly there is a progression, at the end we need to realize that the speed is the new currency. We need to act at speed. This is very important. I meet many CEOs. I was having a very important meeting yesterday when very typically they say, well, we are overwhelmed, we do many things, we are changing so many things, but this is not anymore business as usual. So this is a moment where you need to accelerate the transformation. Change management is going to be more important than ever, because again, becoming an AI-ready organization requires to work across different elements of the organization, and so speed is extremely fundamental.
Yeah, and I think that also, I had mentioned to you earlier this point that you made, around 40% of your projects now focusing on scaling AI versus 25%, which is what it was a year ago. I think that also hits at the speed, right? Organizations are taking advantage of this moment and they're accelerating quickly, so really focusing on that I think is important.
Yeah, there is a continuous learning, and we see this when, again, when I meet our clients and prospect, there is a complete awareness now really about the potential. Is really about execution. So I think 2026 and 2027 are going to be important years of execution, in terms of implementing what has been defined and capturing more value, because the other point is that, we do this observatory every 6 months to try to understand, what's going on in different industry. The value element is still not so visible. 1/3 of companies start saying that they see value at scale, so only 1/3 of those who are investing in AI. So we expect also value cases to improve in the coming years.
And so this observation, this report that you're doing, it's I understand a barometer every 6 months that you do, and the next one's coming out at the end of May?
Yes, we will have a barometer coming out at the end of May, where we typically show all the different, the status of AI adoption across our 13 industry where we work. And what are the best examples, what are the best practices, and we do this interviewing thousands of CEOs and executives across Europe.
We're looking forward to that at the end of May then. Thank you, Mauro. Thank you very much for the conversation. Of course, I always wish we could continue for longer, but that's all the time we have today. Thanks again for your perspectives, and also as a thank you to Accenture for making this event possible. If everybody could just remain seated, up next we will have Sam Clark will moderate the next session, New Cyber Threats, Rethinking the EU Security Laws, Cybersecurity Laws Q&A session. Thank you all very much.